A surprising pattern appears in countless homes every single day. Someone can laugh with friends for hours, enjoy family gatherings, and genuinely care about the people in their life, yet the thought of inviting those same people into their own home creates an uncomfortable feeling they can barely explain. It is often mistaken for being cold, unfriendly, or antisocial, but psychology paints a very different picture. The truth is that your relationship with your home may reveal far more about your mind than your relationship with other people. For some, a home is simply a place to live. For others, it is the only place where the brain finally stops working overtime. The moment another person steps inside, that sense of peace quietly begins to disappear. What makes this even more fascinating is that many people who dislike having guests over are actually caring, generous, and socially skilled. They enjoy meaningful conversations, value close friendships, and love spending time with others. Their discomfort has little to do with people themselves. Instead, it begins deep inside the way the brain processes privacy, control, emotional safety, and mental recovery. Modern psychology has uncovered several hidden reasons behind this behavior, and most people have never heard of them. Some are connected to personality, while others are shaped by childhood experiences, invisible social pressure, perfectionism, or even the way your nervous system reacts to stimulation. These hidden forces influence your decisions without you even realizing they are there, making you believe you simply do not like visitors when the real explanation is far more complex. Throughout this video, you will discover why some people protect their personal space so fiercely, why hosting guests can feel mentally exhausting even before anyone arrives, how your brain treats your home as a psychological safe zone, why the need for control plays a much bigger role than most people realize, and how past experiences may still be shaping your reactions today. You will also learn the important difference between simply valuing your privacy and experiencing a deeper psychological struggle that deserves attention. Perhaps the most surprising discovery comes near the end, where we will uncover why many people spend years blaming themselves for this behavior, when, in reality, their brain may simply be working exactly as it was designed to. Once you understand these hidden psychological mechanisms, you may never look at your own home or your own social habits in the same way again. So stay with us until the very end, because each reason builds on the last, and the final insight connects everything together in a way that explains why this common behavior is so widely misunderstood. Welcome to the channel, where we explore the hidden psychology behind everyday human behavior in simple and meaningful ways. If you enjoy discovering how the mind really works and want more videos that help you better understand yourself and the people around you, make sure to subscribe and join our growing community. Now, let's uncover the fascinating psychology behind why some people simply do not like having guests over. The first reason begins with something psychologists often describe as a psychological safe zone. Most people think of a home as just a place where they eat, sleep, and keep their belongings, but your brain sees it very differently. Throughout the day, your mind is constantly working behind the scenes. It watches your words before you speak. It pays attention to facial expressions. It notices the mood of the people around you. It reminds you to be polite, respectful, and socially appropriate. Even when these actions feel effortless, they still require mental energy. Your brain is quietly monitoring everything around you. Then you finally return home, close the door, and without even realizing it, your brain begins switching into a completely different mode. The need to perform slowly fades away. Your shoulders relax. Your breathing becomes calmer. You stop thinking about how you look, how you sound, or whether someone is judging your behavior. This is one of the few places where your mind believes it is completely safe. You no longer have to wear a social mask. You can sit in complete silence if you want. You can leave dishes in the sink until tomorrow. You can wear comfortable clothes instead of worrying about making a good impression. You can spend an hour reading, watching television, or simply staring out the window without feeling guilty. These small moments may not seem important, but psychologically they allow the brain to recover from the constant effort of social life. Researchers have found that the brain needs periods of low demand to restore attention and reduce stress. Home often becomes that recovery space, almost like a mental charging station after a long day. This is why many people instantly feel calmer the moment they step through their front door. Their environment is familiar. Every object is exactly where they expect it to be. Their daily routines happen almost automatically. They know which chair they prefer, which mug they always use, what music they like to play, and even the order in which they complete simple tasks. These routines may appear boring from the outside, but the brain loves predictability because it requires less effort. Every familiar habit saves mental energy. Instead of making hundreds of small decisions, your brain can simply relax and let automatic patterns take over. That quiet efficiency is one of the hidden reasons home feels so comforting. Everything changes the moment guests enter that fireplace. It does not matter whether they are strangers, close friends, or loving family members. Their presence immediately changes how your brain operates. Without asking permission, your attention shifts outward instead of inward. The recovery process pauses. Your brain quietly returns to monitoring mode. Suddenly, new questions begin appearing almost automatically. Are they comfortable enough? Is the room too warm? Should I offer another drink? Is the house clean enough? Did I remember to put everything away? Are they enjoying themselves? Is there enough food? What should we talk about next? Even if no one says these thoughts out loud, the brain begins solving dozens of tiny social problems every minute. Many people believe this happens because they are anxious, but that is not always true. It is simply how the social brain works. Humans naturally monitor the comfort of people they invite into their personal space. The difference is that some brains switch into this mode much more strongly than others. For them, hosting is not relaxing. It feels like returning to work after finally clocking out. The house no longer feels completely private because another person's presence changes the emotional atmosphere. Even silence feels different when someone else is sitting in the room. Your usual habits disappear. You may stop singing while making coffee. You may hesitate before lying on the couch. You may avoid watching your favorite television show because you worry the guest will not enjoy it. Without noticing, you begin adjusting your behavior to fit someone else's expectations. Your home is still physically the same place, but psychologically it no longer feels entirely yours until the visitors leave. This explains why some people happily meet friends at a restaurant, a park, or a coffee shop, but hesitate when someone asks to visit their house. Outside the home, the environment belongs to everyone. There is no pressure to protect your personal space because it is already shared. Once the meeting ends, everyone simply goes home. The responsibility disappears. Inside your own home, however, everything feels more personal. Every object reflects your habits. Every room feels connected to your identity. Inviting someone inside can almost feel like inviting them into a private part of your mind. That is why criticism about someone's home often feels much more painful than criticism about almost anything else. The brain does not separate the house from the self as much as people think. For many individuals, the home becomes an extension of who they are, making every visit emotionally more significant than it appears. There is another hidden layer that most people never consider. Hosting someone is filled with invisible work that often goes unnoticed because it happens almost entirely inside the mind. Before the guest even arrives, your brain begins preparing. You think about cleaning the living room, organizing the kitchen, changing the bed sheets if someone is staying overnight, deciding what food to prepare, checking whether you have enough drinks, planning the timing, and even predicting possible conversations. None of this is physically exhausting by itself, but together these tiny decisions create what psychologists often call cognitive load. Cognitive load simply means the amount of mental effort your brain is using at one time. The more decisions you make, the faster your mental energy disappears. Many people underestimate how draining this invisible work can become. While guests may only see a clean home and a friendly smile, the host has often spent hours making hundreds of small decisions before the doorbell even rings. The mental work continues throughout the visit. While listening to conversations, your brain is also paying attention to body language, emotional reactions, and social expectations. You notice when someone's drink is almost empty. You wonder whether another person feels left out of the conversation. You try to avoid awkward silence. You think about serving food at the right time. You remember who likes sugar in their tea and who prefers coffee. You adjust the room temperature if someone mentions feeling cold. You notice whether everyone has a place to sit comfortably. None of these tasks seem difficult on their own, but together they create continuous mental activity. It is like running several programs on a computer at the same time. Eventually, the system begins slowing down. This is why some people feel surprisingly exhausted after hosting even a small gathering. They were not only talking to people, they were managing dozens of invisible responsibilities every single minute. What surprises many people is that the work often does not stop after everyone leaves. The front door closes, the house becomes quiet again. Yet the brain keeps replaying the entire visit. Did I talk too much? Did I interrupt someone? Was the food good enough? Did they notice the mess in the hallway? Should I have offered dessert? Did they seem bored near the end? These thoughts may continue for hours, or even into the next day. The conversation has ended, but the brain is still reviewing every detail, as if searching for mistakes that may not even exist. Some people replay social events because they naturally analyze experiences in greater depth. Others do it because they place high expectations on themselves. Either way, the visit continues mentally long after the guests have gone home. That is why someone may look completely relaxed while hosting but feel emotionally drained afterward without fully understanding why. For people whose brains are already sensitive to stimulation, another challenge begins to appear. A home that normally feels peaceful suddenly becomes filled with constant activity. Multiple conversations happen at once. Someone laughs loudly in another room. A chair scrapes across the floor. A phone rings. Music plays in the background. Children move from room to room. The television stays on while people continue talking over it. Doors open and close. New topics appear every few minutes. The brain must process voices, movement, facial expressions, changing emotions, and unexpected interruptions all at the same time. Some nervous systems handle this with little difficulty. Others become overwhelmed much faster. This difference has nothing to do with intelligence or emotional strength. It simply reflects how different brains process incoming information. Some people naturally filter background stimulation with ease, while others notice almost everything happening around them. Their attention keeps jumping from one sound to another, making it difficult to fully relax. This is one reason silence feels so valuable to certain people. They are not avoiding others because they dislike company. Their nervous system simply needs periods without constant stimulation. Quiet moments allow the brain to reset. Sitting alone with no conversation, no unexpected interruptions, and no pressure to respond can restore energy in ways that social interaction cannot. Many people misunderstand this need and assume it reflects loneliness or sadness, but psychology suggests the opposite can be true. Solitude often serves as recovery rather than isolation. For individuals with highly sensitive nervous systems, protecting that peaceful environment becomes an important part of maintaining emotional balance. When visitors unintentionally interrupt that balance, the resulting exhaustion feels very real even if everyone had a pleasant time together. Yet even sensitivity to stimulation does not explain the whole picture. Two people can experience the exact same gathering and react completely differently. One feels energized after hours of conversation, while the other cannot wait for the evening to end. The reason often lies in personality, and one personality trait, in particular, changes the entire experience of hosting more than most people realize. One of the biggest reasons people feel uncomfortable having guests over has very little to do with the guests themselves. Instead, it has everything to do with control. Every person creates small routines that slowly become part of everyday life. Most of these routines are so automatic that they are almost invisible. You wake up at a certain time, make your coffee in a particular way, sit in the same chair, place your keys in the same spot, and enjoy a few quiet moments before the day begins. In the evening, you may change into comfortable clothes, dim the lights, watch your favorite show, read a book, or simply enjoy the silence without thinking about it. These habits may seem ordinary, but they give the brain something it loves more than people often realize. They create predictability. When life follows familiar patterns, the brain spends less energy trying to figure out what comes next. It already knows what to expect, and that creates a feeling of safety. Psychologists have long understood that predictable environments reduce mental effort because the brain no longer has to stay on high alert. Every familiar routine tells your nervous system that nothing unexpected is happening. Everything is under control. That sense of control is not about being controlling toward other people. It is about creating a stable environment where your mind can finally rest after dealing with the uncertainty of the outside world. This is why many people become attached to surprisingly small habits. A favorite blanket, a certain seat on the couch, A specific cup for morning coffee or a quiet hour before bed may not seem important to anyone else, but together these little rituals create emotional stability. They become part of the brain's daily rhythm, almost like a song that plays the same way every day. The moment that rhythm changes unexpectedly, the brain immediately notices. Guests, even the most thoughtful ones, naturally interrupt these invisible patterns. A visitor may sit in your usual chair without knowing it has become your comfort spot. Dinner may happen later than usual because everyone is talking. Your bedtime changes because the conversation continues longer than expected. The television stays off because someone prefers talking instead. Your peaceful morning becomes busy because another person is already awake. None of these interruptions are harmful on their own, but together they create uncertainty. Suddenly your day no longer follows the familiar pattern your brain expected. You begin adjusting your schedule around someone else's needs instead of your own. You wait before taking a shower because the bathroom is occupied. You lower the volume of your music because someone else may not like it. You hesitate before making a snack because you wonder whether you should offer food to everyone. Even relaxing becomes more difficult because your attention keeps shifting toward another person's presence. The brain notices every small change, even if you barely think about it consciously. This explains why some people feel mentally tired after hosting overnight guests even when the visit was enjoyable. Their routines disappeared for a day or two, forcing the brain to stay flexible instead of relaxed. People who naturally enjoy structure often experience this effect much more strongly. They usually organize their day carefully because routines help them feel productive and emotionally balanced. Their schedule is not simply a list of activities. It is the system that keeps their mind calm. When unexpected changes appear, the brain must constantly adjust, creating a feeling of mental tension that builds throughout the day. This does not mean they dislike helping others or spending time together. It simply means their nervous system depends more heavily on predictable patterns. A last-minute visit, an unexpected overnight stay, or a gathering that lasts much longer than planned can quietly drain their energy without anyone noticing. Other people may leave feeling happy after a wonderful evening, while the host feels completely exhausted without understanding why. They often blame themselves for being antisocial when the real reason is much simpler. Their brain spent hours adapting to uncertainty instead of following its normal rhythm. Control also gives people a sense of ownership over their personal space. Home is one of the few places where individuals can decide almost everything. They choose when the lights are turned on, when meals are prepared, how much noise fills the room, and whether the evening is spent talking or enjoying complete silence. These choices create a feeling of freedom that many people deeply value. Guests naturally change that balance. Decisions become shared instead of personal. You may keep the lights brighter because someone else prefers them that way. You might delay going to bed because leaving your guests alone feels impolite. You may avoid cleaning, relaxing, or doing your normal activities because someone is watching. Without realizing it, your freedom becomes slightly limited until the visit ends. For many people, this is only a minor inconvenience. But for others, it feels surprisingly stressful because their home no longer functions as the private space they depend on for emotional recovery. Yet personality and routines do not explain every situation. Sometimes the real discomfort comes from a completely different place, one that has nothing to do with needing quiet or protecting daily habits. Sometimes the greatest source of stress begins long before anyone knocks on the door. It begins inside the mind with the fear of being judged. Many people are not worried about spending time with guests. They are worried about what those guests might notice. The pressure often starts days before the visit. They begin looking around the house through someone else's eyes instead of their own. Suddenly, every small detail feels important. Dust on a shelf that was ignored yesterday now feels impossible to ignore. A small stain on the carpet suddenly looks much larger. Furniture that seemed perfectly fine begins to feel old. The brain starts searching for flaws because it expects another person to do the same. Whether that judgment actually happens becomes almost irrelevant because the anxiety already exists before the guest even arrives. Perfectionism often plays a major role in this process. Perfectionists usually hold themselves to extremely high standards, and those standards rarely disappear inside the home. They may believe the house must be spotless, the food must be impressive, The conversation must never become awkward, and every guest must leave feeling completely satisfied. These expectations sound reasonable at first, but together they create impossible pressure. No visit can ever feel successful because perfection is never fully achievable. Instead of enjoying meaningful conversations, the host keeps noticing tiny imperfections. A pillow is slightly out of place. The meal took longer than expected. Someone barely touched the dessert. A glass remained empty for too long. None of these details may matter to the guests, yet the host quietly interprets them as personal failures. The visit becomes less about connection and more about performance. That constant self-evaluation drains emotional energy far more than most people realize. Embarrassment also shapes this experience in powerful ways. Some people worry that their home is too small compared to others. Others feel uncomfortable because the furniture is old, the walls need repainting, or expensive decorations are missing. Financial insecurity can silently influence social behavior without anyone recognizing it. A person may avoid inviting friends over simply because they fear being compared to someone with a larger house or a more comfortable lifestyle. Social comparison is a normal part of human psychology, but it becomes harmful when people believe their value depends on what others think of their living space. A modest home can suddenly feel like evidence of personal failure, even though it says very little about someone's kindness, intelligence, or character. Many guests never notice the things hosts worry about most. Yet the fear remains powerful because it exists inside the imagination rather than reality. The appearance of the home becomes emotionally connected to personal identity. If someone compliments the house, the host feels accepted. If someone criticizes even a small detail, it can feel deeply personal. This is because the home often reflects years of memories, effort, and personal choices. People decorate it according to their taste, organize it according to their lifestyle, and slowly fill it with objects connected to meaningful experiences. Inviting someone inside can therefore feel like revealing a hidden part of yourself. The more emotionally connected someone feels to their home, the more vulnerable they may feel when another person walks through the door. This vulnerability explains why some people postpone visits repeatedly, make excuses, or prefer meeting in public places where nothing personal is being evaluated. For some individuals, however, the explanation reaches even deeper than perfectionism, or fear of judgment. The brain does not simply react to what is happening today. It constantly learns from what happened years ago. Every emotional experience leaves behind patterns that quietly influence future behavior. This process happens automatically because the brain is designed to remember situations connected with strong emotions. If childhood family visits regularly ended in arguments, criticism, or emotional tension, the brain may begin linking guests with stress instead of comfort. It does not matter that those experiences happened long ago. Emotional memories often remain active beneath conscious awareness. Years later, the same uncomfortable feeling appears again whenever someone plans to visit, even if the current guests are kind and supportive. A child who grew up in a house where relatives constantly criticized the family's appearance may develop an unusually strong fear of judgment without understanding why. Another child may have experienced loud family gatherings filled with conflict, making every future visit feel emotionally exhausting. Someone who never had privacy growing up may finally see adulthood as the first opportunity to protect their personal space. Their home becomes the one place where nobody enters without permission. When guests arrive unexpectedly, that feeling of safety disappears. Not because the visitors have done anything wrong, but because the brain has learned to connect shared space with emotional discomfort. These learned associations are remarkably powerful because they operate automatically. The conscious mind may say, "These are my friends. I trust them." Yet another part of the brain quietly responds, "Visitors mean stress." Both thoughts can exist at the same time. The brain remembers emotional patterns much more strongly than ordinary facts. You may forget what happened during a family gathering years ago, but your nervous system may still remember how it felt. That emotional memory can influence your behavior without ever becoming a clear conscious thought. This is why some people struggle to explain why they dislike visitors. They simply know they feel uncomfortable. The deeper reason remains hidden because the brain responds first and explains later. Modern psychology has shown that many emotional reactions begin automatically before logical thinking has time to catch up. What feels like a simple preference may actually be the result of years of learned emotional associations working quietly in the background. After hearing all of these reasons, an important question naturally begins to appear. If someone dislikes having guests over, does that mean there is actually a psychological problem, or could it simply be another normal difference between people? As we've discovered, not enjoying guests in your home does not automatically mean you dislike people. In many cases, it simply means your mind values peace over noise.